I skimmed through this article. I did not read it in advance, but the title of the article definitely caught my attention. And I want to say that I kind of haven't really kept up with the Ultimate Universe. And I think I'm becoming a bigger fan of trade paperbacks and just waiting for a trade paperback to come out to read as much as possible all at once. My reading habits are changing when it comes to comic books. There are some comic books that I like buying individual issues, like reading through individual issues, keeping up with what's going on. But at some point, and I found this this happens more often than not. If I'm really, really, really interested in something, I'll read a couple issues, then I'll just go, you know what? I'm going to wait for the trade paperback and read this whole thing. This is good, and that's the way I want to read it. But this story caught my attention, and and I understand people's hesitation. There is a thought that none of these creators respect these heroes, but I think some actually do. And I think this article kind of gets into that. Like I said, I didn't read through the full article in advance, kind of skimmed through it. Ultimate Wolverine writer had complete creative freedom, but avoided putting twists on a mutant hero for fear that the novelty of that might wear off. Understanding that fans don't want novelty, although we don't mind, especially when you're dealing with alternate universes, with changing things up a little bit, but it doesn't have to go crazy with the change up. You don't have to get too insane with it, changing up everything and making everything completely different and completely foreign. I always say this. I argue that there are exciting and encouraging things going on in comic books. And although it might be slight, I'm not going to tell you, oh, we're back, everything is all good, but there is an effort to course correct, in my humble opinion. So this is, of course, article bounding into comics. Spencer Baculi, which I've read one of his articles before. I tend to like his articles, I believe. Despite the concept being core to the very foundation of both incarnations of Marvel's Ultimate Universe, Ultimate Wolverine Volume 1 writer Chris Condon has admitted that he declined to have his take on the mutant berserker deviate too far from his standard Earth 616 counterpart out of his own belief that audiences would eventually grow tired of any such novelty. I think he was right. You can do variants without going completely crazy with the variants. I love this art, by the way. While the Ultimate Universe, both the original Earth 1610 version and the maker's rebuilt Earth 6160 is built on the specific premise of providing slightly different takes on Marvel's massive catalog of heroes and villains. Whether that be a teenage Tony Stark taking on the mantle of Iron Lad, Reed Richards breaking bad and becoming one of the multiverse's greatest threats, or even Peter Parker and Mary Jane being happily in love, married, and having started a family all their own. But when it comes to Condon's Ultimate Logan, outside of the fact that his forced experimentation and brainwashing came at the hands of the Winter Soldier program instead of the Weapon X, the hero has nearly identical personal histories and to his regular 616 depiction, replete with not only a history of manipulation by government agency, but also a long-standing friendship, rivalry with Sabretooth, soft spots for both Kitty Pryde and Phoenix, and personal dilemma over whether or not he actually has purpose outside of Killing Machine. He even gets his own Muramasa blade. So he tried not to go too far, to stray too far from Wolverine's original story, understanding that this wearies fans. This gets old on fans. We don't mind variants. We don't mind telling stories in a different and unique way. But that doesn't mean you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think often that's what's done is a lot of things happen with some of these heroes and people feel like, okay, we got to completely trash all of this and tell an entirely different story. And I don't really think that is the case. I don't think you have to trash an entire story. You can tell the story in a new and unique way while maintaining the core of who the character is. And it seems like he was able to do and understand exactly that. Put simply, though Ultimate Wolverine Volume 1 is an overall good book, especially once it hits its climax, its take on Logan feels far too familiar for a world supposedly flipped on its head by the maker. Now, this is where I will depart from the author of this article a little bit. I understand Condon's point. Like, yes, I want this to be different, but I don't, because I think sometimes what happens is there's this belief that, oh, people are bored with this character. They want something else. No, we don't necessarily want something else. We just want new and interesting stories that you don't have to completely change the character in order to get to. I don't think that's necessary. Recently, sitting down with CBR Brian Cornyn in reflection of Ultimate Wolverine overall production following the publication of its 12th and most recent issue, as originally intended to be the series finale entry, before Marvel Comics ordered an additional 4 roughly halfway through writing, Condon was asked if he could elaborate as to his specific approach to creating his alternative reality version of Logan, to which he explained, well, it was mentioned in our initial call, me and series editor Will Moss discussing who he would be. And at the end of the day, we kind of came back to the idea that Wolverine is Logan, and it just kind of felt that was the way that it had to go. Look, I always say Wolverine is one of the X-Men characters that if you mess with too much and you mess up, it irks, it gets under my skin. I don't know what it is. Like if Wolverine is not drawn correctly, you could have a whole comic book of X-Men that is impeccable, but you mess up Wolverine, and I'm like, so I can't like the book now because you didn't draw Wolverine properly. You didn't take proper care with Wolverine, so now I can't like this book. I don't know what it is. I mean, we certainly could have come up with some sort of twist. We could have had it be Creed, Victor Creed, or somebody like that. But at the end of the day, the novelty of that might wear off, and Logan is this quintessential character. I love the idea that I love the idea of that DNA existing across universes. This character is so strong across universes that parts of him remain. And I kind of love that idea. Yeah, so I definitely understand what he's saying. I get the idea. Like, and there was this thought that maybe we go with Wolverine as somebody else. I think he understood something. I think he understood that we love the history of these characters. We love what's built into these characters. So we're not necessarily looking for you to make somebody else Wolverine. I understand of the idea of mantle characters. I definitely understand that. But I don't want all of the comic book characters I love to be a mantle character. I just don't want that. And I think there's a lot of people that kind of feel like I do about that issue. I have always kind of referred to the idea of the Ultimate Wolverine book being not just part of the Ultimate Universe, but I've tried to approach it with the perspective of it being the Ultimate Wolverine book. What would that be to me as a fan? And I am a fan. Yo, do you know how refreshing it is to hear somebody who is a creator say, what would I want to see as a fan? Because I am a fan. That's how I got into this. This, my friends, is the mark of someone who really understands comic books, in my humble opinion. So looking at So looking at it, what would I think the Ultimate Wolverine book would be? And that is what I tried to do as a writer. And Alessandro has been nailing it on art. I will agree. The Ultimate Wolverine books I have, the art is impeccable, and this man needs more work. I think they should probably maybe put him on some X-Men titles and see how he does, because I like his art. Nailing it on art. And so has Alex Linz. Yeah, it's been fantastic. And I agree. I agree. He's not just saying that to say it. The art has been done very well. Condon further admitted that much of his reluctance to change Logan's core character was rooted in his love and admiration for the character's mainstream history, which he felt was too iconic to play around with. I'm going to clap for that. I am going to clap for that. I am so glad to see somebody in a mainstream comic book space understand that there's certain things you just don't mess with. I respect that. I respect that. I don't know where this guy stands. I don't know if I will agree with all of his stances in comic books, but I will say right here, agreed, sir. I have a large X-Men collection. It does not go back to the single digits necessarily. I can't afford everything, but I have a fairly large collection of X-Men books, and I love them. It was my favorite thing to not just have PDFs that I can look back to, but actually have the physical books that I can pull out and read and have it next to me as I'm working on these issues, and can pull from this guy. Hey man, I'm with you on this. I am with you on this. I always say there's something about the physical and tactile things. And the fact that you can tell this is written, this is spoken by a fan who became a creator and did not forget, I am a fan. If I was a writer and somebody said, we're giving you X-Men, do you know the first thing I would do? I would sit down. A lot of people might disagree with this for different reasons, and I understand, I get it. I would sit down with John Byrne and Chris Claremont, and I would also go back and read much of those old issues of X-Men that I have. I would open up my short boxes, pull these things out, and start reading through all of this stuff again. Because what I would not want to do, I don't want to change the core of who X-Men is. And I don't want to I don't want to stray too far from what we love about X-Men. As a fan, what would I want to see in X-Men? And I got to say, again, y'all know me. I don't do a bunch of complaining on this channel. I only talk about things I like, and I like what I'm hearing from this guy. But man, X-Men has been lacking. We need a guy like this writing the mainline X-Men line. Like, just wipe all of X-Men clean right now and get somebody like this. I'm not saying you have to get him specifically, but somebody like this who's actually a fan of X-Men and is like, yo, I can't be messing with these characters like that. I can't, like, that's sacrilege. I got to maintain who these characters are and write something that's faithful to who they are. I like this. I like this a lot because it's important to me, even though it's a different universe. I want to have that DNA be the same because I want to feel like what I love. Or I want it to feel like what I love. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. There's a difference between creators who got into comic books enthusiastically, some of them enthusiastically, but they weren't really into comic books, like fans like that. And there's a difference between someone like this who is a fan, and you can tell I love comic books, and so I want to get into this. And again, that kind of goes back to that concept of trying to make the ultimate idea of what this could be. Yo, I like this. I liked it. I really like his take right here. I'm not going to lie. As noted above, with issue number 12 having hit comic shelves last week, Ultimate Wolverine Volume 1 has only 4 issues to until wait, what? I don't know if I'm reading that wrong. Has only 4 issues to until it, or to it until, maybe that's what they want to say. Oh, anyway, as well as the larger Ultimate Universe comes to a close. Maybe I was just reading that wrong. My dyslexia acting up. Anyway, however, don't expect this epilogue to have much of anything to do with the climactic Ultimate Endgame Volume 1 event. As Condon says, they will instead be more of a red-purple sky crossover. Yo, Condon, man, Marvel, you need to get this guy on X-Men. This is a guy clearly that understands the X-Men franchise. He's a fan of the X-Men franchise, and Marvel really needs someone who understands X-Men and understands what cannot be messed with to be on X-Men.